Thank you for tuning in to TalkWad.com, the world's fastest growing internet radio network. Please check out all the other great shows on www.talkwad.com. Welcome to Think Up, Unlimited Possibilities. This show is designed to uplift you as well as explore the cohesive nature of the universe in order to discover the unlimited possibilities available through converging and expanding consciousness. And here's your host, Patricia V. Scott.
Hello, this is Patricia V. Scott. And I'm still not going to tell you what the V stands for. Probably never. Victory. Victorious. So guess what? I have my first in-studio guest tonight. Today is, let's see, I want to give that number first. If you want to call in during this show, because this is going to be an exciting show, I've got Tamara Fontenot here. I'm going to introduce her officially in a moment, but I want to kick this off by saying you can call in tonight if you're listening on February 28th. Is that what it is? Yeah, February 28th, and 7:30 to 8:30. You can call in at 727-493-2055. We'd love to answer your questions or entertain some questions that we might not be able to answer, but we'll make something up. Whatever. We're going to have fun tonight. I'm going to have fun because I've been in here all by myself. Well, actually, Tamara, I have to tell you, say hi, Tamara, just so we can know you're there.
Hi, Tamara.
Oh, there she is. Say goodnight, Gracie. Yeah. Okay. I have to tell you, though, I did have an in-studio guest that took your place when you couldn't make it the other time.
I heard Yoda.
Yoda, my little green Yoda friend. And I have to tell you, I had to fire him. Because he was really less exciting than I really had planned on him being. And I know this guy can talk because I talk to him, sometimes. And he has all these profound, wonderful, insightful things that he says.
Absolutely.
And yet here, what does he say? Meditating I am. He kept meditating. He didn't want to talk. So finally I just left him alone and I just left him home.
Okay.
But I may bring him back. He's so cute. I might bring him back again sometime.
He might be in a better mood.
Yeah, he might be in a better mood. Maybe he's finished meditating after a few weeks here, and we'll bring him back and see if he can, inform us of something he discovered in his meditations. Sure. So, Tamara, I'm not going to do that thing that they used to do when I was in show business, where you get it in front of a camera, or you get on a microphone and they say, so tell us a little bit about yourself. That is the worst question that you can ask someone. So I'm not going to ask you that.
Okay.
And I've known you for a while now, right?
Yeah.
So I could tell them some things about you, but I'll do that when you're not here. So why don't you just, we're going to talk about mindfulness, right?
We are going to talk about mindfulness, especially as it relates to hypnosis and the kind of work that we do.
There you go.
You'll forgive me. I'm meditating.
Don't turn your head too much. Yeah, exactly. Don't you start or I'll fire you too.
We'll get this one right.
Yeah.
See if that's better. So we want to talk a little bit about mindfulness, and especially as it relates to hypnosis. But I think, as we go through this discussion, we're going to find that mindfulness and hypnosis are
cousins.
They're very close cousins, very close cousins.
Like so many other things, of course. And again, this, I've told you, if you watched any of these, that I am a hypnotherapist. I'm hypnosis and NLP, and some of these things are my study area. But I intentionally left it out of the name of the show. It's called Think Up, Unlimited Possibilities, because I'm open to anything and everything that can help us to live a more resourceful and uplifting and happy and productive life. And that's why I have you here today, because you didn't start in hypnosis, and yet you're all about helping people to uplift them out of whatever is keeping them down, whether it's physical, mental, or emotional. And
yes, indeed. And that's what I've been doing for 30 years.
30 years. You don't look old enough. Did you start when you were 12? Look at her. Yeah. And I told them last week, hypnosis keeps you young. I really believe that. And if you believe it, it's true. See?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Because I don't look 85, do I?
Not at all.
I'm not. Okay, let's get that straight right now. No facelifts, nothing. Ageless,
We do sometimes just meditate on that.
There you go.
Actually, looking as young as I feel.
Looking as young as you feel. So you feel pretty young?
Feel very young, yes.
I feel young tonight. I feel about 32, maybe.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel 12.
It's giddy and I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I
All the
start feeling,
benefits of it without the.
there you go.
Yeah. Without, but with the freedom to do what you would like.
Cool. So, that's what happens. I had an uncle one time. I had an uncle for many years. He's no longer here. But he came to visit. I went to visit up in where my dad lived, and he was my dad's older brother. And he was, I think at the time he must have been 85 or 6. And we went to the racetrack, right?
Yeah.
The horse track. And he was just flirting with every girl that came along. And he told me, he said, when you get as old as me, you can get away with a lot.
Yeah.
And they all thought he was just so cute, and he was having a ball. So,
Today you might be saying creepy.
maybe, I don't know. It's Midwest, small town. They're not quite as politically correct or touchy. People can laugh at themselves there.
Absolutely.
Not that they can't in the big city, but it sometimes is more challenging there. So tell us about mindfulness, because I did a little research on my own, but I kind of want to hear from you and from your approach, and just a little bit about how long you've been doing it, how you got interested in it, and that kind of thing. And do some name dropping, because I like that.
Do name dropping. Well, and goodness knows we can drop a lot of names, because mindfulness is, of course, based on the tradition of meditation, which goes back about 2,500 years, maybe more.
Ooh,
So
long time.
we could drop quite a few names between here and there, not the least of which is the Buddha.
Yeah, Buddha. I like that, Buddha.
But mindfulness has become much more present. We didn't. I'm a licensed mental health counselor, and it's interesting to me. But mindfulness is all the rage right now. There are just literally thousands of publications on the usefulness of meditation, mindful meditation. Just you name it. Whether it is physical health or emotional health, mental health.
And they're all tied together, of course.
And they're all tied together, of course. But when you start looking at the empirical data, studies can only focus on little things one at a time. And what you see is an explosion of data showing mindfulness as an effective treatment. It's everywhere. As we kind of laugh in the mental health field, because it seems that these days, everywhere as you turn, everyone is becoming a mindfulness practitioner.
Sure, and it's a great word. I like that somebody, came up with that. And do you know who actually, I know it's not a new word. I mean, it's been around forever, but do you know who actually brought it into the world of psychology as...
To bring it into something more mainstream, the name that jumps out is Jon Kabat-Zinn. Because he developed,
and I found him right away on the internet when I started doing some research.
Not that there were a lot of people who were doing these kinds of things going way back into the 50s and the 60s with the human potential movement and meditation as a whole. But the idea of mindfulness, teaching people to be in the here and the now, to be fully alive in the present, and bringing that especially into the field of medicine, which is what Jon Kabat-Zinn did, was he rather, I don't want to say standardized it, but he made it something that was useful for people who weren't meditators. When we talk mindfulness, we're not talking about spiritual meditation, and I think it's very important to distinguish those things. Mindfulness, and when we're talking in mental health or in medicine, we're really talking about simply teaching people how to be here, now.
Right.
Not in the past, not in the future, right here. As it, Richard Nongard shares this, and I always love it. Master Oogway from the Kung Fu Panda. How's some name dropping for you there?
There you go.
Right?
Oogway? Good
yes,
name.
Master Oogway, who says, the past is history, the future is a mystery, and what we have is here, now.
Very nice.
The present, the gift. And, of course, there's lots of people. I remember reading probably 25 years ago, I think it's Spencer Johnson, Dr. Spencer Johnson, I believe, who wrote The Present. And it's a beautiful story, beautiful metaphor.
He wrote something called The Present?
It's called The Present. And it's a beautiful story about a young man who is out there trying to understand what it is all about. And he eventually discovers that it's here, now.
It's already here.
This is it. Yeah.
Very good. And I like that word now. In my training room at Up Hypnosis Institute over on East Lake Road in Palm Harbor, Florida. For anybody who isn't in Florida, I have a clock on the wall in my training room, and I love it. I referred to it today. I had a consultation with someone, and I refer to it often because it is a constant reminder. It's kind of like it's something that reminds me to come back into the now, and it, instead of numbers, it has now. So it's always now there. And it is a good reminder. It's something that can be very useful, like you said, with medical issues and with people that are all caught up in maybe some things from the past, and mindfulness. It just makes sense, doesn't it?
Does just make sense. And
Yeah.
I have to laugh and go, gosh, why don't they teach these things in the schools? But mindfulness itself has become so popular that, in fact, they are going to begin teaching it in the schools. They are teaching it now to our young people in the military before deployments.
Oh, wonderful.
They are.
And for when they come back too, hopefully, because the PTSD and some of these, whatever they're calling it now, and for that stress, the
right.
trauma stress.
Well, there's a lot to mindfulness besides the fact that you're in the here and now. There's the other aspects that start to become very pertinent, and I know they're directly related to the kinds of things you do and what you talk about, are ideas of acceptance,
Mm-hmm.
non-judgment.
Right.
The idea that, or an understanding that our minds are very, very busy word machines that are constantly putting things together. We're all incredibly creative. I can take two objects and hold them in front of you and ask you to relate them. How are they alike? How are they different? How's one better? I mean, and you can make some very creative judgments right there. Your brain's designed to do that, and it's a very useful thing. And that's helpful to all of us. It's how we get out of the house every morning. If our brains weren't able to make those associations, we'd have problems. We wouldn't learn. It's fine up until the point in which those associations maybe become problematic or
Sure.
troublesome.
Mm-hmm.
When we make judgments, I think the ones that I like to hit in my classes are judgments about ourselves. The I ams, the
Right.
self-concept. I am depressed. I am a procrastinator. I am X, Y, Z.
Exactly. Those are powerful because
Those are very
they're
powerful.
telling you what that person believes themselves, or who they believe themselves to be.
And you are what you
Yeah.
believe yourself to
Exactly.
be. You will
Exactly.
live out that way.
Yeah.
And one of the fundamental concepts in mindfulness when we're teaching people this, it's first learning to be here now,
Mm-hmm.
and then to recognize that that mind machine, that word machine is always going. It's always talking. That doesn't mean that you have to buy into it.
Right.
You can actually develop a level of awareness in which you are able to recognize what your mind is doing and make a decision about whether or not that's still useful to you or not.
Very nice. Very nice. And if it isn't useful, then you have some things in the techniques of mindfulness, in the types of techniques you do, that can then.
That can change that. I personally, I teach a mindfulness self-hypnosis class because for me, if we're going to open up into that space, that level of awareness where we're aware that we're having thoughts, so we're aware that we're having these thoughts,
Right.
that means we can decide. You can step above now. You can start to reframe those if you'd like
Reframe.
to. You
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
reframe them.
Good
You
word.
can change them. You can decide whether or not you would like to do something different with that. And when we talk about mindfulness, in its purest sense, in John Kabat Zen, there's not going to be a whole lot of changing going on. You would simply learn to get into that place where you're more centered, and that's one of the benefits of it right off the bat. Is people have what we call in mental health emotional self-regulation. A lot of people, a thought happens, a feeling happens, and for them, it's everything. It's real, whether it's overwhelming or it's just what they buy into, and they act accordingly. So in mindfulness, our first step is learning how to regulate what we're feeling. So you would want to breathe and center and just be in the moment. You want to learn to experience your different emotions or even your different thoughts without responding to them. One of the ooh, something
There
cool
she
happened.
is.
Yeah. One of the
'Cause
really
you're kind of far away. I think he upped it a little bit.
Yeah,
Gave
I
you
did
some more
something.
juice.
Sorry, I didn't want it right in my face. One of the things that it's almost weird.
Yeah.
They go from where was I going with that?
Good question.
It's kind of strange hearing yourself this way. Yeah.
Yes, it's very loud.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's very different.
Well, you were kind of getting far away. I think he's trying to up it so you
Okay.
could hear you better.
Um,
But as far as other than changing, instead of changing, just being aware, you said
Just
because I
being
saw that word a
aware.
lot in the research I was doing. It's about being
being
self-aware
self-aware and then
without that judgment, like you
without
said.
the judgment,
Yeah.
and then self-regulating. So you're aware that you're having those thoughts. In pure mindfulness, they might teach you to just say, I am aware I'm having those thoughts. You know, I'm, Nongard uses an example. I love it. He, this young man is hungry. They're near a McDonald's and he doesn't want to eat McDonald's. He doesn't like McDonald's, and yet it's there. And so he has a thought and that judgment and everything that goes with it is, well, there's a McDonald's. I have to eat. Let me go get something at McDonald's, even though I don't like it. Well, the truth is, if you're aware of yourself, you could breathe, center, get mindful. You can realize, first of all, you're not going to die.
If you don't get McDonald's.
If you don't get McDonald's, it's
we don't
okay.
We don't want to pick on McDonald's.
Not picking on
Happens to
McDonald's.
be.
Yeah, we don't want to get in trouble with
You
McDonald's.
had
but
one of those when you came in, actually, didn't you?
I just had the milkshake.
I saw that.
It's
I saw
actually
that.
not.
And I
that
can't
bad.
have that right now because I'm on a special thing here. So I
See?
was jealous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well,
now are you off
I,
track again?
I'm like, yeah, that's
So,
a judgment. That's a
so
thought.
you can become aware of those thoughts that as they come, and then being there with that thought
and it takes away the power of that thought.
instead of fighting it or
doesn't-
getting
it
upset
doesn't mean
about
that
it.
you have to feel it. You don't have to do anything. You can simply become aware that you are having a thought. Simply become aware of a feeling, aware of an urge. But it doesn't mean that you have to respond to it.
There you go.
So, in mental health, they've taken the concept of this pure mindfulness and they've applied it to different types of therapeutic approaches. And one of my favorites is something called acceptance and commitment therapy by Stephen Hayes. And Stephen will actually refer to those thoughts that we're buying into as being fusions. So those are fusions. We become fused to these ways of defining ourselves or ways of defining the world. And mindfulness is about becoming defused from those thoughts and
Interesting
feelings.
word. I haven't heard that like that before.
Yeah, acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT. Stephen Hayes is another big name in the field, and I use a lot of his work to guide the mindfulness trainings that I do.
So in modern, as far as the modern transition of the mindfulness concept in psychology, in the 70s, I saw was when who was that first guy you mentioned?
John Kabat-Zinn.
John Kabat-Zinn. And I saw a lot of him on the internet. I know,
Sure.
and a lot of videos and things. And I watched a little short one just to get a flavor for what it was. And that whole concept of being in the now and it puts you in control, doesn't it?
It does. It absolutely
it gives
puts
you-
you
it
in
empowers
control.
you.
It is a very empowering thing to simply be aware that you're having that the mind is generating these things. And so there you are. There's a beautiful meditation that he does. And when you start talking guided mindfulness meditations, that's where I go, well, I'm not quite sure where hypnosis starts in my guided mindfulness
We don't care what they call
meditation.
it if it's good.
Yeah, I really don't. And that's another really awesome book if you're ever interested by Michael Yapko called Mindfulness and
Yapko. Oh,
Hypnosis.
I have heard of
Yeah,
that.
Michael
I have heard of
Yapko is
that,
a
yeah.
big
I may
name
have
in
it, actually.
It's a,
It might
it's a
be
great
in
book.
my library.
It's really it just came out like last year, I think.
Oh, did it?
Yeah,
Oh,
I think it's
then I
pretty
don't.
new.
But I have
he
heard of
really
it.
lays out. He kind of lines them all out, and you go, well, really. Once you start doing guided mindfulness meditations, it's when when people think meditation, they usually think, okay, I've got to sit on this pillow in a funny way, and I got to sit there for hours. And it's interesting. I don't know about you. I get a lot of folks who come to me and tell me they're regular meditators. And yet they need to come and see me. And I go, well, if you're doing meditation, you're going to be familiar with this feeling. It's just going to be a little bit different.
Right.
It's not a spiritual approach. So it's not that whole idea. Most people think of meditation, they want to get in that position and then they clear their mind.
Yeah.
If the thoughts
Empty out.
wander, yeah, empty it out. That's right. Empty it out. And they usually are anchoring back to their breath. So as soon as they recognize themselves are wandering, you come back. And then you have to start asking, who is it that's recognizing that you're wondering?
Yeah, there you go.
That's where the awareness comes in, is when you become aware that there is a you, an outside something bigger. Point to your mind. John Cabot says,
Exactly.
point to your mind. Where is
Yeah.
your mind? It's not here.
Yeah.
And it's not all those neurons. There's something else going on. So
The mind uses the physical body and brain. That's I always say if you die and they dissect you, they can find your brain and the body but they can't find your mind.
They can't find your
where
mind.
Is it? And
So-
even in the energy field that surrounds us, they've got, there's things that register even outside of our physical skin
exactly.
that is affected by our thoughts. It's kind of interesting.
Yes, indeed. And not just on an individual level, but on a global level as well, if
Yeah.
you're familiar with any of the work they do with random number
Dynamics.
generators and
There you
things
go.
like that.
Yeah,
It's very interesting stuff.
There's so much more than we realize, isn't
There's
there?
much
I
more
really
that
do.
we're even not even able to perceive
Yeah.
at this point.
And I get the feeling, just from the changes that have happened, let's say in the last 20, 30 years in these fields, I just get the feeling that we're beginning to kind of come to a point where we're really just right at the tip. But do you get that feeling that
I
it's almost like it's ready to
absolutely
just
get
blast
that
open,
feeling.
and it's like you almost understand people, even if they're coming at it from another maybe direction or another modality.
Mhm.
And I find that I get with people who are getting it, whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
But it's like an understanding and a minds are kind of coming together somehow to some kind of a truth in the center of all of these different things that everybody's trying to figure out.
I'm with you.
It's fabulous.
It's like a
I'm
tidal
excited.
wave.
Are you excited about it?
I get excited about it. Yeah.
And that's what I like about the fields that we live in.
Mhm.
I'll include you because you've been in a kind of, you came from a different angle, but the world of NLP and hypnosis, and I was thinking about this gentleman who brought the mindfulness into the current times in the 70s, and that was right about the same time, of course, Bandler and Grinder were studying hypnosis and family therapy and things, and then they came up with NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, and just it's like everybody's starting to kind of figure it out a little bit more efficiently, a little bit more effectively,
Mhm.
and a little bit more faster, kind of not shortcuts. Well, they are shortcuts, but it's not that anything's left out by taking that shortcut.
Mm-mm,
It's like just finding more efficient ways to do things where you don't have to spend a lot of time and effort for a lot of things, including medical issues, which is the part that really gets me excited.
Yeah.
And of course the emotional is tied into to your physical too. So it really, it's pretty, we're seeing some profound changes in people being affected. I did 2 shows. Well, I did one that was almost completely about the placebo effect. And it's just, when you start reading about the placebo effect, it gives you an insight, even if you haven't studied any of these things, into what is going on when a sense of expectation and a belief in a possibility of something meet, and miracles seem to happen. It's truly fascinating to me. The placebo effect kind of proves a lot of, and they've known about that for so long, and yet
They've known about it, and yet it was cast aside. I just finished a course on the history of hypnotism, which took a whole perspective. When Ben Franklin went to France.
we talked
and-
about this.
Have you
couple
talked
weeks
about
ago.
this?
Yeah.
If he had
It's
just
all in their mind.
grabbed the concept that, yes, it was just imagination, but wow.
Yeah.
How do we harness
Yeah,
this?
it's like throw it out because they're being healed, yes, but it's all in their mind.
It's all in their mind, but they're being healed,
wait a
and they're just going to
minute.
miss that. It's
Wait
like,
a minute. So what's with that?
It's
What
interesting.
happened? Yeah.
And so just like mindfulness, these things, they have been around forever. And I know I've heard you say it before. There's really nothing new under the sun except for our understanding, our acceptance, and our awareness of
Exactly.
what is happening. If you saw it all like it's one big elephant and we're the blind men feeling it,
Right.
it's as if somebody's peeking and going, hey,
So how long are your mindfulness classes? Are they like a series of classes? Do you?
They are. I do once a quarter. I do a 6-week closed group. So people register, and it's that group, and they go through all 6 weeks of that class.
So they start at the beginning. They have to be
start
in
at
there
the
at the beginning.
yeah.
And by closed, you mean is there like a limited number of people that you?
Yeah,
Can...
and once we get going, we're all working together. It's not meant to be a therapy class. It's absolutely a skills training class.
Cool.
And we start with the very most basic principles of mindfulness, and that is, that idea of getting into that centered place. I'll tell you, if anybody ever got out of that class is how to breathe once an hour, every hour, and be, grounding themselves to the moment, it's probably worth their money
Nice,
there.
nice.
That changes people's lives immediately.
Yeah, people don't realize breathing is something that can do these things, and yet people think they know how to breathe,
And they don't.
and it's a whole different
They
kind of
don't.
breathing,
It's
isn't
a
it?
whole different
Yeah.
kind of breathing. I teach people to belly breathe, or I'll tell
Right,
them a booty
right.
breathe. So belly breathing, and that ties into a whole nother aspect of something called polyvagal theory. I don't know if you've ever heard it called that, but there's a vagus nerve, a bundle of
Oh.
nerves in the spine behind the diaphragm. And so by belly breathing, when you are exhaling that way, you actually stimulate that little bundle of nerves, which creates a calming effect.
Oh,
Or
nice.
the relaxation response.
Nice. Is that why I was so happy when I was singing opera?
It might be.
Because I had to learn how to belly breathe.
You might have, ooh, but
yeah.
people forget. I tell them all the time, babies breathe this way.
Yes, yeah, if
Babies
you watch
know
a
how to
baby
do
or an
this,
ant-
and
even
then
a
we
pet,
get
yeah.
lazy or busy or
Or
distracted.
if we're a woman, we try to hold our stomach in, right?
Right, or it could be that, but that belly breathing in and letting your belly expand and drawing that air all the way down deep into your lungs and then exhaling, bringing the diaphragm and the stomach back in. You're stimulating that. I encourage people to take 3 breaths like that in when they get there to 0, so 3, 2, 1, 0, just to remind themselves, in this moment, I'm breathing. I'm
Right.
fine.
And if someone has any discomfort, this kind of breathing can help them to feel better in this moment, can it?
It absolutely
Yeah.
can. What I try to get people to do, I'm like, please breathe. I know you're breathing anyway, so make it useful once an hour, every hour, whether you need it or not. Because by doing so, and I know you know this too, you're actually training the mind body. Just like just like Pavlov and his dogs. And,
Sure.
and the thing is, we're doing it anyway. We're doing it
Right.
anyway. So I mean, no disrespect. We're not dogs, obviously. You're consciously
But we
making
we
the
are
choices.
conditioned, and some of the things we're conditioned at this point, whatever point in your life you're at, are working for you, as Dr. Phil would say. How's that working for you?
How's that working
And
for
if it
you?
isn't, the nice thing to know is that you can learn to change the response, the conditioned response,
That's absolutely
through
right.
some of these techniques. Yeah.
And that kind of a breathing, so you're taking 3 breaths down, 3 times you're saying to yourself, in this moment, I'm here, I'm fine, I'm breathing.
Yep.
And breathe yourself back up. It takes less than a minute. And if you were to do that once an hour, every hour for the next 2 weeks, I'd bet a paycheck on your life being better.
Yes, I believe it. I believe it. Because like you said, you have to breathe anyway.
Yes.
And when people tell me they don't have time for these kinds of things, I say, do you go to the bathroom during the day?
That's right. I had someone tell me that. She goes, every time I go to the bathroom, I'm like,
There you
whatever
go.
works for you.
You're there,
Yeah.
hopefully by yourself, and you're just kind of hanging out. You might as well breathe
Yeah,
because you're going to be
exactly.
breathing anyway. And you can be more in touch with yourself, you can be more self-aware as it
Absolutely.
as it says.
And more in control of what you're feeling. And it's really interesting. I like it because usually somewhere's about the midway of the class. It's only 6 classes long, but somewhere's along there, about the 3rd class. Like people typically don't pay a whole lot of mind to this. And then the 2nd week, they start paying attention.
Right.
And by the 3rd one, I will have someone there telling me that they used that breathing during an uncomfortable situation and how dramatically it changed their response. Because there's a difference between reacting and responding.
Right.
And so when you talk empowering, the ability to stay centered even when things are crazy around you,
Absolutely.
that's responding. And now something really magical is happening.
So they start to notice that, and it
Yeah.
probably is showing up on its own without them consciously
Yeah.
necessary, right? And
Right.
that's when it gets people's attention because the learning does occur at the unconscious level. I
Absolutely.
think all learning we can perceive of things with our consciousness, but once it gets into the unconscious and it shows up on its own, that's when it's really cool.
That's when it's really
And
neat.
that's and I really believe that part of our mind that I call the unlimited mind, the higher mind or the unconscious, subconscious, however many words there are for it. To me, that is the part of the mind that always, if you offer it an option that's going to be something healthy or be good for you, be positive for you, it's going to grab that over whatever maybe the previous option was that wasn't quite as good for you.
Yeah.
And that's the nice thing about these techniques, is that I really think that's why the mind grabs it so quickly sometimes. Almost makes your head spin how fast. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
We get a lot of wows, right?
We get a lot of wows, yeah.
Yeah.
I also talk a lot in the class about the fact that what we call it was just heard some training recently. They called it a negativity bias. And what I mean by that is that, if I tell you 10 things and 9 of them are great about you and one is not, most people will gravitate reactively to that negative thing. They grab that.
Because there's an emotional response,
component.
yeah.
It's sort of a survival technique. It's like, if I can, it's really nice if the caveman could admire the posy, but he really needed to know about that tiger, that it wasn't, don't pet that kitty. You need to learn those things quickly. So that's why there's this negativity bias. And I didn't coin that term, but it's nice when things feel good and you still feel safe and you still feel all of those things. There's a lot of reasons for you to move towards that.
Nice.
In mindfulness, we're not saying, in Buddhist philosophy and mindfulness teachings, life has pain. Life has pain. Hard things happen to us. I don't care who you are. People, if I just won the lottery. No, believe me, you'd still have hard things in your life.
Absolutely. Life wouldn't be worthwhile if it was always one dynamic going on. We'd get pretty bored with it, even if it was...
And it just can't be. Yeah. Life is change. Life it's constantly evolving. Here's the thing with mindfulness. That's not the same as suffering. I think Yoda says something like that.
Probably. Sounds like Yoda.
Life is pain, or there's a commercial some local attorney's doing now. Life, there's pain, but, suffering is optional.
There you go.
And suffering is optional.
No, that sounds like Dan Cleary.
Okay.
Because matter of fact, I was just reading his little book of change because I was giving it to a client today. And Dan Cleary is a hypnotherapist over in West Palm. And he has a little book of change, and he knows something about pain. This man does. Anyway, he was talking about that very thing. He said, you get the signal, you get the pain signal, and there is pain, but you don't have to suffer.
You don't have to
suffer.
And that's what happens when you become mindful.
Yeah.
Because you're not reacting to everything.
So when does your class start? Is it
my next class starts March the 30th, and it'll run for 6 Saturdays. I do it on Saturdays from 10 to 11:30. People tell me it's a perfect time because they walk out of there feeling awesome.
And the whole rest of the day to enjoy.
And the whole rest of the week to enjoy it. I'm coming up. I'm finishing one this week, and I know I've already gotten a couple of notes going, man, you need to make this a little longer,
Oh, I was wondering, an hour and a half, that doesn't sound very long.
We get a lot done.
Yeah.
I don't want to take up their whole weekend or mine, but and a lot of it is stuff, they take it and they move with it. Again, there's other principles, and we're beginning to touch on them, the idea of suffering being optional. Non-judgment, huge. Acceptance.
And that's a huge one. That's a real challenge for a lot of people, that non-judgment.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So how would people find out about your...
Oh, they can always go to my website. I've got it there, www.tampabayhypnotherapy.com.
That's easy to remember.
Yeah, tampabayhypnotherapy.com, and there is an announcement section on there. And
if someone... And I do still meet people that don't have computers. So do you have a way to contact you?
You can always call me. I know I do meet a few people like that. Not many these days.
Don't be afraid. You can. Singing mood today.
You are. You were singing before we started. They can always call me at 727-543-7556, or call you. You know how to reach me too.
Yeah. I can always find her. I know where she is.
Always, because I'm always around, it seems.
So this is fascinating to me, and I really do love all of the different modalities that are discovering ways to help people to feel better, to live healthier and happier and more productive lives. And that's what this is about. The UP stands for, living up to your potentials, living up to your possibilities. Obviously, that's one of my words. And just the thing about being in the moment, because I have a thing I've been doing the last few years. I don't remember when it started, but where I think actually it was probably close to when my dad died. I'm realizing about 3 years ago or so. And where I would wake up in the morning, and I went through some kind of rough physical and emotional things a little bit, just kind of struggling with some of that. And without realizing it, by the way, at the time, just kind of going through it. And I remembered thinking at one point, I started thinking, and I'm still doing it, where I wake up in the morning and I say, if I wake up and my eyes open, there's more to do. There's more experience to have. And every day is an experience. And I don't know, it just, as I get older, which is happening right now, as I get older, I'm hopefully learning, because it does seem like sometimes we keep relearning the same lessons as humans. And yet I feel like there is a kind of a convergence of knowledge that's starting to help people to learn maybe a little bit more efficiently and to make every moment of life matter, even the challenging times. And like I did talk a little bit, which I didn't plan on a couple of shows ago, about being with my dad while he was sick. And even in those times, those challenging times, there were amazing, miraculous little gifts of things that enrich my life and that added value to what I am experiencing in life.
Absolutely.
And it's phenomenal. So I don't know. Do we have any more to talk about mindfulness? Or let me give the phone number again in case somebody wants to call in. Mm-hmm. If it's Thursday, February 28th, and if it is between 7:30 and 8:30 p.m. I don't know how much more time I have because he hasn't told me. We got plenty of time. I keep forgetting there's a clock right there. I keep waiting for him to give me the high sign. You can call in anytime at 727-493-2055. That's 493-2055. And Tamara and myself would be more than happy to entertain any questions that you might have or anything that you'd like to add to the conversation. If it's relevant, we'll keep you on. If not, we'll cut you off. Or if we just don't like you, we might cut you on. I'm just kidding.
Now that's power. No. You said
it's my show. I can do what I want. That's why I got this show. I'm just kidding.
No, that's cool. No. That's cool.
So what were you going to say?
I was going to say there was a couple of things in what you said that I think are pertinent to the concept of mindfulness and working in that. One is when we say, life has hard spots. Willingness is a big piece in mindfulness, a willingness to experience all of the things in life.
Right.
A large number of people come to see me because they have deliberately avoided.
Right. Yeah, some people withdraw when something comes up that either scares them or is difficult. Sometimes some people withdraw.
Suppression, repression, addictions, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the things that people do that keep them in a place where they're not living up, or not being what they would want to be, is their unwillingness to feel what it is that they have had to go through in life. There's things you can't control.
Absolutely.
And the only thing you can is here.
How you think about it.
As how you look at it, feel it, and perceive it. And, I like to go back. I had a friend, a very, very dear friend, a brother to me, even though he wasn't biologically a brother, who passed away a few years ago, 38, Lou Gehrig's disease. Very, very difficult. And I will still say to people that was one of the most beautiful experiences of my life. I don't wish that. And if I could have undone it, I would have undone it. But I can't undo that. It was what it was. And but to share that and to not be afraid of the discomfort and the pain that had to be a part of that, I feel very enriched in my life because of it.
And that sounds a lot like what I was expressing about being with my dad. And I didn't expect that to be that way necessarily. And yet that kind of brings something to the forefront that maybe is worth talking about a little. Because I know I have an opinion about this, and I'm just curious, do you feel that the work that you've done, the studies that you've done, the pathway, the journey that you've chosen for yourself in this life and the kinds of things that you've delved into and learned and all that, do you think that has altered the way that you experience those kinds of events?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was going to say, again, I'm not giving any names or anything like that, but there was a family member of his who was biologically related to him, who never could deal with it.
Right.
And still can't deal with it. And as a result of her being unable to be present in that moment because of her desire to avoid the discomfort, the suffering continues.
Sure.
As you know,
It
those
sounds
things,
familiar in my situation.
I'm
not going to go there.
Those things we avoid gain gravity in our lives. They begin to take more and more from us. And this particular person, that pain has prevented her from being close to others who survived.
Yeah, and what a shame too, because
How sad.
if you're going on, I think being there and getting through things, dealing with in whatever way, and getting whatever is there, like you said, there was some amazing experiences there. It's like something you have to go through. Otherwise, there's an old saying, "What you resist persists."
That's
right?
exactly it.
And it's that kind of a concept, and that really is true. If you're wanting to avoid or ignore or whatever something that you have to go through, then it follows you.
It stays,
And it prevents you
creates
from
more
living.
power, and it gives it more power.
Absolutely.
It's really very sad.
And that's one thing with these kinds of techniques. The thing I love is when you do get someone maybe who has something that doesn't realize that they have, they feel out of control about something maybe that happened many years ago, and it's been affecting their lives negatively for many years. These kinds of techniques, the thing I love is that we can offer to these people a new way of thinking about it, the opportunity to realize that those things don't have to control them right now, here, today, moving forward. And it's very sad.
It's never too late.
It's
to make
never
that
too late, as
decision.
long, like I said, as long as you're breathing and,
That's
and
right,
you're alive.
in this moment.
and heaven knows that when people get past something, especially if it's been troubling them for many years, whether it's and there's going to be physical manifestations usually of those kinds of hurts as well, along with the emotional. And once that's cleared, once that is given a different perception or a perspective or reframed or whatever words, and techniques are used, when that person gets what was there for them to get and are able to move past it, it really enriches their lives amazingly.
Lightens them up.
Amazingly.
They bloom. And it really is amazing. There was something else in what you said. You talked about something that I deal with in the class. I spend a whole class on valued direction and understanding what it is that really moves you. And all of us have those. Whether we've ever stopped to examine them or not is another story. Most people go through and they just do the things they think they're supposed to be doing without ever stopping to say, what really matters to me?
Right.
But what matters to you moves you in a very unconscious way, whether you're aware of it or not. I know what I know about you. I know that there are certain things that you will always move that way.
Really?
Stephen Hayes. Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. You listed two of them, and if I'd have had a pencil, I'd have wrote them down. About the things that matter to you, really matter to you, and of course, those are going to be the things that you look for and see out there. Even in your darkest hour, you're still going to be moved by them, and they're beautiful things. And I know you've probably given some thought to them, but most people haven't. And I say to them, these valued directions, these things that are important to you, they're like water in a bowl, and it's going to move down. It's going to go down. If you put a hole in the bowl, the water is going to go down. You're always being moved in that direction. So we take a class to talk about those and to have people stop and examine them. There's a couple of little techniques I use, like the miracle question, and you may be familiar with that, where you ask someone to sit and just meditate on tomorrow morning. A miracle happens. Your life is everything you want it to be. Tell me what that looks like. And it's one thing to get the picture, but then you have to say, what is that really bringing you? How do you know?
Go a little farther with it.
It's not the money, it's the security, or whatever it is that moves you down deeper. Or there's another one I like to do called the present, where you have someone just imagine a present, whatever it is, the thing they most want, but you keep going under it and under it and under it, like an onion with lots
You're
of
putting me in
layers.
trance. You know that.
Yeah,
don't you?
I'm really good at that.
I'm so easy.
Some
It's,
people tell me that anyway. I don't know, but they go under it and try to understand what is it that matters to you at the end of your days when they write your epitaph. What do you want them to say?
right.
And if you've never thought about it, then chances are you're probably living something someone told you to do.
Yeah, a more shallow, superficial kind of a life that isn't really what's important to you.
And not fulfilling. People get a sense of that.
And there are a lot of times, I don't know if you get this, I'm sure you do, but and have through the years, but a lot of times people come and they don't even know what they're looking for. They just know something's missing.
No, they come in and they say,
And they may have
I
everything,
don't want
you know.
this. I don't want this.
Right,
And
well,
you
yeah,
go,
sure, yeah.
Tell me what you want. And they
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, sometimes, you know, and from the outside world, they may look like they have everything, you know, sometimes a great, you know, supposedly great family, great relationship, money, you know, career, all of the, you know, material things, outside things that would seem to be something that would fulfill someone, and yet that's not what fulfills the person. And you know, if you are self-aware, and if you get to the place that these kinds of techniques really introduce you to yourself at that higher level, I like to think of it as a higher level of mind.
We call it a witness consciousness.
There
in
you
the
go.
mindful day,
Yeah.
this witness consciousness.
And from that place, from that perspective, you are able to look at your whole life in a different way and be in challenging, difficult, whatever labels you want to put on it, situations, and have even in the most challenging times, have an appreciation for what's there. And I find myself always looking for what is it that I'm, you know, 5 years from now, what is it that when I look back at this situation, I'm going, like you said, value. Where are the little gifts that are there that are going to enhance your life
That's
after
right.
this? Sometimes you don't see it when you're right in the middle of it, but there's always it, you know. And I ask people, I say, if you look back at, if I asked you to tell me in 10 minutes, what has your life been? And if it's someone middle age or, you know, that's had some years on their life, they're going to highlight the really high highs and the really low lows. Those are the ones that impact you. The emotional times are the times that make you who you are.
Right.
And if you can keep the challenging emotional times from being something that takes away from your value of life, that takes away from yourself and your growth and your learning and all of that, I think it really can make your life even more enjoyable when you get those next highs.
That's right.
It allows you to enjoy
Richer.
the highs richer.
Richer.
Yeah,
It's just richer, deeper, more meaningful.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's all cool, isn't it? It's really neat stuff.
It's wonderful stuff.
I
And then,
like
of
it.
course, you know, at the end of our class, we tie in the self-hypnosis, because why waste a good doorway, right? Why waste
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
can get into
My
that
favorite
trance?
phrase,
That's
why
right.
waste a good
Why
trance?
waste a doorway? That's right.
Oh, you got doorway. I like the doorway too. I call
Yeah.
it a channel. Sometimes you open that channel, right?
A channel, yeah. I think I got
Doorway,
the doorway
window,
from Scott
yeah.
Sandlin.
Oh, there
I
you
like
go.
the doorway.
Scott Sandlin. Hypno Thoughts. If anybody out there is interested in doing some research or study in hypnosis or getting with a bunch of people that are really into it, you could just go to hypnothoughts.com. It's okay to give him a plug here.
Yeah, well.
Scott's cool. He's one of the new guys. Not really new. I guess I keep thinking he's new because he looks like such a kid, but he's really a up and comer in the world of hypnosis, and he's got a lot of good technological things going on out there. All that newfangled stuff that I can't seem to quite figure out yet.
It's coming.
It's coming. So, non-judgmental. To me, that's one of the things that is a challenge. It is a challenge in life.
It is a challenge. And again, with mindfulness, that's the whole, when you're getting into that centered space and you're stepping out and you realize, you know, we try to help people understand. I mean, if I hold something out here and ask you to look at it, well, we're going to look at my hand. You know, there's my hand. You look at my hand, I look at my hand. Are we really seeing the same thing? Well, of course we're not. We can't possibly be seeing the same thing. I mean, visually we got the different angles, but my hand has special significance to me and it has another meaning to you. There's no way. And once you start to understand that, you understand just how subjective your experience of reality really is. Well, where do you get to pass judgment? Because now I might want you to come over here and see it from this side.
Right.
And you're going to see something else. And wow, there's there's a lot of things you start letting go when you can get that perspective.
Nice. And I don't know why, but my brain went, while you were doing that, my brain went, because I was starting to think of also non-judgmental about yourself. And I thought, the same thing you could kind of say, I think of myself in a certain way. And sometimes someone will say something about their perception of me that I go, really? And if you do the same thing about yourself, I'm sure there's a lot of value in being able to see yourself from another angle or another perception that way too. So in mindfulness, can you do that?
Absolutely.
Of course you can.
Absolutely. That's it.
Nice,
And that's the whole thing.
nice,
You start to
yeah.
realize you are not those
Yeah.
things you've defined yourself as.
Right. Because usually your definitions were a lot of them kind of introduced at a very young age, and you adopted them and
Absolutely.
adapted them
Absolutely.
through your life based on other people's opinions of you, right? I mean, that's
right.
where a lot of our self identity comes from.
Absolutely.
And if it isn't something that serves you or that is letting all of your great resources shine, it's nice to do these kinds of techniques. And sometimes people don't even realize they've got so much inside of them. And then that's where those wows come from. They get into they get all that clutter out of the way, all that, busy mind and all of the debris out of the way, and get into that moment, get into the now, into that self-awareness. And that higher intelligence inside shows you a self sometimes that is, well, all the time, I would think. All of the time, it will show you yourself in a purer way, without all of other people's things that maybe helped form your self-identity. The true self is there beneath all of that, like peeling an onion.
That's right.
Yeah.
That teacher that screamed at you when you were 6 and you thought,
I didn't
I'm
have
stupid.
nobody screamed at me.
Not you.
I was the perfect student. I was the perfect child.
I didn't
Nobody
mean
ever
you.
screamed at me.
But I mean, you hear
Thanks,
that.
Will.
You hear that. And then, they've told themselves their whole lives they were stupid. And they're not.
No,
And they're not.
And sometimes I think about the thing about if someone was told they were clumsy a lot as a child, and they start to take on that identity. And even if they grow up and they kind of work through the physical clumsiness, I've found that sometimes they and this is just a example, obviously, but they might get into hypnosis or into a mindfulness, get into their unconscious level. And then they find out that their sloppy handling of money actually was the seeds of that clumsiness, so to speak, was planted way back when they were a child. And consciously or logically, it wouldn't even make sense to connect the two. And yet, if it comes up like that, and there it is, and it's only going to come up, I believe, if it's ready to be resolved anyway.
Absolutely.
I do want to real quickly take a pause here from wonderful Tamara Fontenot, who's here, licensed mental health counselor and what do you call yourself? Hypnotist, hypnosis
certified
practitioner,
clinical and medical hypnotherapy. Yeah.
Okay.
Hypnotherapist.
Yeah, and she is extraordinaire. And I always give something away every show. So if you're watching this either live or on the internet later in the archives, I don't really care because I like to give things away. And mention that you saw this. I will send you my Your Unlimited Mind Self-Hypnosis Introduction to Self-Hypnosis if you're interested in delving into your own consciousness some more, because it is all you doing it, right?
That's right.
We're guides.
It's
fun being a guide, though, isn't it? Isn't it fun to find out what's inside of people?
I love it. But more than
The
that,
greatness.
my favorite part of it is when you see the smile.
Absolutely.
You see the way you see people let go, and it just, they're different.
It's very fulfilling to us
Yeah.
as well. Oh, and you can get that by emailing me, before I forget. The website is uphypnosis.com. You can send your email to info@up stands for Unlimited Possibilities, of course, uphypnosis.com. And just go there and you can just say that you heard me say that I had a self-hypnosis pamphlet. It's about a 14-page, I believe, booklet here. And I'll be happy to send that in a PDF to you. So anything else? We're going to be wrapping it up here in a couple of minutes, but didn't get any calls today again. Got to
That's
get the
okay.
word out. So spread the word, please.
I talked a little bit more than Yoda.
You talked a lot more than that, Yoda. He's on my. He's going to have to really, come around the next time for me to bring him in again. I'll give him another try. But
I like Yoda. I quote him a lot
he's
in my
adorable.
work.
He's adorable. There is no try, right?
That's
I like
right.
that. That's my favorite. There is no try. There is only do
Only
or do not.
That's right.
Do or do not. Well, you can, But we don't want that do not part, do we? Well, sometimes. So there you go. So Tamara, anything to wrap it up here? You have any other things coming up besides the mindfulness classes? You do see private clients too.
Oh, I
patients.
absolutely see private clients. I have a meetup group that I do once a month.
Oh, that's
for
right. I
hypnosis.
forgot about that.
That's a fun class. That's a very fun class. Just go to meetup.com, Tampa Bay Hypnotherapy Community Group, and that's really
Nice.
fun. First Thursday of every month.
Oh, you're doing it on an actual schedule.
I do
Because we also have the Palm Harbor hypnosis and NLP meetup group, but it's kind of like whenever I feel like doing it.
But it's always fun.
And it's different every time.
It
yeah,
is.
yeah.
It's always fun.
That's more my style. You know me.
Yeah.
So if things get too regimented, I get bored really fast. So
Yeah, I
just
hear
kinda
that a
shake it
lot.
up. In some things, it would be good for me to be more scheduled, probably. But anyway, I think we're getting pretty close. I don't know. We got Will, who I just new friend of mine here. How much time do I have, Will? Will, how much time will I have? I better. Okay, well, Will, you could pretend that you're a call-in and just ask us a question.
How can we help you with?
Yeah, what is it Fraser says? I'm listening.
Is it possible to hypnotize people to help increase their focus?
Absolutely. Hypnosis is concentrated, focused attention. If you want to hit a golf ball better, if you want to play better sports, if you want, they call it the zone, right?
How do you hypnotize oneself, or can you hypnotize yourself?
Yes, I have this pamphlet here that I will be happy to email you if you. Yes, I do a self-hypnosis class once a month. And it's, again, if you go to uphypnosis.com, we do a lot of classes for weight. I started doing a quarterly thing for living smoke-free. There's a lot of different classes for the public, as well as, our certification training. I almost forgot, coming up March 8th. Almost forgot to mention it. We can give continuing education to nurses. It's a 6-weekend class. They're not easy for me to say. They're not consecutive. 6 weekends of hypnosis certification through the International Association of Counselors and Therapists, and you can also join practically just about any other hypnosis organization out there. And hope you'll check that out as well. And anything else you'd like to throw in before we sign off here, Tamara?
No, I think that's about it.
I'm so happy you joined me.
Thank you. I'm really glad I was
fun.
here. It was fun.
Isn't it fun?
It is. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Yes, pretty soon we'll be syndicated and we'll go big time here. And Will is going to sign off now and come back next week on Thursday. We'll be talking some more about something. I don't know what yet.
Terrific. Thanks for having me.
Think up.
Welcome to Think Up, Unlimited Possibilities. This show is designed to uplift you as well as explore the cohesive nature of the universe in order to discover the unlimited possibilities available through converging and expanding consciousness. And here's your host, Patricia V. Scott.